Ve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastyachadesh Tarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Vanchkalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So devotees, Srila Prabhupada and his two disciples, Achyutananda and Ramanuja, they are in Calcutta waiting to leave back to America. But there is what I think a strike you'd call it. Political strike. So they got delayed quite significantly. 2 weeks they got delayed. Yeah, and now they're just about to leave, to fly out. Just about, and they're going to. They are going to. I mean, he is going to, actually. They're going to stay. And devotees, one thing I can say is that there's only about 4 pages left in the book, so it's not going to take long. We'll make a few comments as we go. Well, we'll see what is suitable, but maybe we'll do something like that. Yeah, and then we've finished the 3rd volume. We're halfway through. We started in September sometime. September sometime. In Joburg, I think. Must have been Johannesburg. And here we are now, the 7th of January 2022. So what is that? September, October, November, December, January. 4 months. Not bad. And as we mentioned, don't mind me mentioning it again, I forgot all about it until I received a message from a devotee reminding me that today is the 49th anniversary of my moving into the temple in London. Haribol. Right, so 2 weeks passed while waiting in his room for the political strike to end. Prabhupada received a letter from Umapati, one of the devotees he had initiated at the first initiation in New York in September of 1966. Umapati had given up practicing Krishna consciousness for half a year, but now he wrote to say he was back. Prabhupada replied, so September 66 he got initiated. It's now, it's October, I think, it's November. It's November the 20th or thereabouts, or end of November maybe. Yeah. So, and he was away for 6 months. Anyway, Umapati, he's still a devotee, but a very troubled devotee. Oh, Krishna. All right, so Prabhupada replied, "It is my duty to deliver you the right thing in right earnestness, and it is the duty of the receiver to act in the standard spiritual regulation. When you left us, I simply prayed to Krishna for your return to Krishna consciousness, because that was my duty. Any good soul who approaches me once for spiritual enlightenment is supposed to be depending on my responsibility to get him back to Krishna, back to home. The disciple may misunderstand a bona fide spiritual master being obliged to do so under the pressure of Maya's influence. In other words, a disciple may just forget that the relationship is ultimately that deep, extremely deep. But a bona fide spiritual master never lets go a devotee once accepted. When a disciple misunderstands a bona fide spiritual master, the master regrets for his inability to protect the disciple, and sometimes he cries with tears in the eyes. We had an experience while my Guru Maharaj was alive. One of his disciples who accepted sannyas was one day forcibly dragged by his wife. My Guru Maharaj lamented with tears in his eyes, saying that he could not save the soul. We should also therefore be careful of being attacked by Maya's influence. And the only means of guarantee is to chant Hare Krishna offenselessly. That's deep. That's really deep. I mean, it's a bit inconceivable. I mean, it's very inconceivable in certain respects. Prabhupada had more than 5,000 initiated disciples. There's a list of them on the internet. But not all of them continued practicing, unfortunately for them. Yeah, I couldn't say how many, but it was not a small number who got distracted. Yeah. So, as Prabhupada mentions here, there is a type of, you could say, spiritual law, L-A-W, that sort of law, that when a spiritual master gives shelter, which particularly means gives initiation to a disciple, then the spiritual master becomes very responsible for the disciple, even to the point of having to take birth again in the next lifetime to deliver the disciple, or in some way or another in the future, beyond the current lifetime, to make arrangements for the deliverance of all the disciples. So, 5,000, at least about 5.5. And I suspect they didn't write all the names down. But anyway, just say 5,500. And I don't know how many, of course, some number, and it's increasing, obviously, have passed away. And I'm not sure how many have passed away. It would be really interesting to know. But a number of them have passed away and not been in Krishna consciousness, or at least not being very Krishna conscious. So what's going to happen? Prabhupada may have to come back for them. Of course, there's very interesting story, and very famous story, of Bilvamangal Thakur. You may have heard of Bilvamangal Thakur. He was a great devotee. Well, put it this way, he became a great devotee kind of in the middle of his life, or something like that. In the middle of his life, or whatever. And he was in his earlier days, up till, I would say, it must be well into his 20s or something like that. He was actually pretty degraded. He was pretty degraded. He was not a devotee. And he developed a relationship with a prostitute. And he would go and see her regularly. Yes, her name was Chintamani. And one night, he went to see her again, and there was a storm, and she lived on the other side of the river, some river that was there. But he was so desperate to get to her and, supposedly enjoy her company, that he swam over the river, even though it was a storm and the river was just sort of raging. It was very dangerous. And as he's trying to swim across and struggling, a log came by, and he thought, okay, I'll hold on to that, that'll help me. So he grabbed hold of the log, but what did he find out? It was a dead human body. Hare Krishna. Anyway, somehow he managed to cross the river. And her rooms, whatever her place, was up. Some, I don't know how many floors, but up. And he couldn't go into the house. He had to climb up a tree to reach the window to enter. So, he's in quite a state. So he's climbing up. He's almost there. And he saw there's a vine hanging down. He thought, I'll pull myself up on the vine. He grabbed the vine. It was a snake. So, Krishna, what a situation. But anyway, he got in through the window and he landed on the floor. And Chintamani looked at him, and Chintamani said, if you were as attached to Krishna as you are to me, you'd be a pure devotee by now. And something just went click, like a big click in his mind. And he just stood up and walked out and became a devotee on the spot. It's a very famous story, Bilvamangal Thakur. And the understanding is that it was his spiritual master from his previous lifetime. Anyone remember the name of the spiritual master? I can't remember. Anyway, it was the spiritual master speaking through Chintamani, the prostitute, and just reawakened him, just like that, in that next life, even though he was in just a terrible state. And, actually, Srila Prabhupada said that, he said to one of his disciples, Bhajahari, in Bhaktivedanta Manna, I think 74, that to the effect that we were all together in our previous lifetimes. But my spiritual master has sent you to me. So sometimes a person, when the person's a devotee, but they become degraded, and at the time of death they're in a degraded state, so they can't go back to Godhead. So they're born again, but as Krishna says, you're born in terms of your consciousness at the end of your life. So if they die in a really degraded state, they get born into a degraded situation, and they go through degradation for some time, but then from the previous lifetime, the spiritual master, either actually coming in person, or like with Bilvamangal, coming through someone and just touching the heart, and suddenly the Krishna consciousness from the previous lifetimes just awaken just like that. I mean, it doesn't always happen like that, but yeah. In my case it did. What a life. You know, if they ever find out and write a book about it, I tell you, everyone will abandon me. Oh yeah. Oh boy. I mean, it's too bad. Literally, really. But then suddenly I met Prabhupada, and it really set things off. So anyway, Bilvamangal became a devotee on the spot and walked out and decided to go to Vrindavan, and he went to Vrindavan. Of course, there's another similarly famous part to the story, really super heavy. He's on his way to Vrindavan, walking from, I don't know, wherever he was, but he's still troubled by material desires, to some degree at least. And he came to some village, and a Brahmin invited him to his house, and for lunch. So he went and he had lunch, and the Brahmin said, "How can I serve you? What would you like? Just tell me." And Bilvamangal said, "All right, let me enjoy with your wife." Hare Krishna. Of course, the Brahmin was just shocked, but he had given his word, so he said, "All right." So Bilvamangal told the wife, "Can you please take your hairpin out of your hair?" As if he's sort of, propositioning her, or whatever you'd say. "Can you take your hairpin out and give it to me?" So she did, and handed him this hairpin, sharp. And he took the hairpin and removed both his eyes. Yeah, physically removed them. And so Bilvamangal Thakur, when he arrived in Vrindavan, he was blind. He had no eyes. And he spent the rest of his life blind. But he became great devotee. So anyway, Hare Krishna. Excuse me for that. But Prabhupada told that story. All right, so we don't want, so we're all, or most of us, or all of us, or most of us are disciples, or in the process of becoming, or something along those lines. And we must always remember, as Prabhupada says here, the disciple may, he says misunderstand, means forget that the relationship is so serious, and just sort of, drift off back into material life, as what happened with Umapati. But we should remember that the relationship is really deep and it's eternal, and be very responsible. And Prabhupada's mentioning a disciple, one of his godbrother's disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, who somehow, I don't know what happened, but somehow joined the mission and even took sannyas, which, is a major step. But then his wife came and physically grabbed hold of him in the ashram and physically dragged him away, and he didn't return. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was deeply affected by that. When Prabhupada received news of quarreling in the Los Angeles temple, he replied to Nandarani, "I know that my presence is very urgently required. Arrangement is already completed, and circumstances alone have checked my departure. Please, therefore, don't be worried. I'm coming to your place within a fortnight," unquote. At the end of the first week of December, the strike ended, and Srila Prabhupada again booked passage. Quote, "You'll be pleased to know that I've purchased my ticket for New York via Tokyo and San Francisco. I'm starting tomorrow morning at 9:30, by evening reaching Tokyo via Bangkok and Hong Kong. I shall rest 24 hours in Tokyo, and on the 14th at night, I'm starting for San Francisco. By local time, I'm reaching San Francisco on the same day, the 14th, at 12:45 p.m. by Pan Am 846. Yesterday I've sent one telegram to this effect, and I hope I shall reach there safely as scheduled. I'm so glad to learn that Satyabrata and yourself are trying to get the teachings of Lord Caitanya published. You do not know how pleased I am to hear this news. When one book is published, I think I've conquered an empire. So try to publish as many books as possible, and that will enhance the beauty and prestige of our society. The impersonalist mission has nothing to say substantial, but because they have money and have published so many rubbish literatures, they've become very cheaply popular. You can just imagine how much powerful our society will become when we have as many substantial literatures published. We should not only publish in English, but also in other important languages such as French and German," unquote. When the day for Prabhupada's departure finally arrived, he gave last instructions to Achyutananda and Ramanuja. "Just pray to Lord Krishna that I can go to America," he requested Achyutananda. "How can I?" Achyutananda replied. "You'll be leaving me." "No," Srila Prabhupada replied. "We'll always remain packed up together if you remember my teachings. If you preach, you will become strong, and all these teachings will be in the proper perspective. When we stop our preaching, then everything becomes stagnated, and we lose our life." That's an important point. Even here in India, people think that they know everything, but they're wrong. There's no end to hearing about Krishna. God is unlimited, so no one can say, "I know everything about God." Those who say they know everything about God do not know. So everyone will appreciate you. Do not fear. Achyutananda, when I returned to the room after sending off Swamiji and paying my obeisances at the airport, I felt a void. I felt very lonely and rather weak. I returned to the room in front of Shri Shri Radha Govinda, and chanting on my beads, I started pacing back and forth. What will I preach? The black and white marble floor passed under me. I stepped on the cracks, in between the cracks, and on the black and white marble again and again. Then I realized I wasn't seeing Radha Krishna. So I sat down directly in front and saw the brilliant form of Radha Govindaji, and my eyes filled with tears. Hare Krishna. So we're still devotees. We have two paragraphs to go. 2 pages. So we will meet. Whoever wants is welcome. Tomorrow. Japa, same time, same place. And Prabhupada lilamrita, same time, same place, same devotees. Anyway, let's see. For those who want, we don't want to impose on you because you're all very, very nice devotees with so much service to do, but I think we'll complete the book tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any comment or question?
Maharaj, it seems to me then that Srila Prabhupada and his disciples, perhaps in previous appearances, or were together in that kind of guru-disciple relationship, or maybe something different. I don't know.
It's quite possible, quite likely.
Then I was also wondering, when was Pulva Mangala Thakur here?
Oh, we'd have to look it up. It was before Lord Caitanya. It was several hundred years ago. Several hundred, put it that way. Around the time, approximately, of Jayadev Goswami. Yeah. You got Prabhupada's books on your device. Have a look. It'll say there, I would imagine.
And I was reading how Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that those who are favored by the Lord find their path set with thorns. So then I was thinking, in retrospect, we may see why it is that Krishna puts us through those difficulties, and we see how he has been so merciful. But while we are going through the difficulties, how do we fully accept that as mercy?
Well, you've got to have that basic faith. Yeah. We're not just dependent on the outcome. If it works out, if the outcome is good, Jai Krishna, we like you. If the outcome is, not what we were hoping for, then boo, Krishna, we don't like you. No, well, the thing is, the more you go through those things, and the more you see how Krishna helps you, the more the next time it's easier, and the time after it's even easier. And Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj said that when I see a test coming, I think, here comes Krishna in the form of a test. So you just embrace the test.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Okay. Oh, okay.
Maharaj, is it possible that Prabhupada's disciples who didn't make it, they can be delivered by his other disciples who...
Well, you mean in their next lifetimes, or later in that lifetime?
Even in that lifetime or in their next lifetime, maybe.
Well, they can definitely be helped. Definitely, during this lifetime, and it happens with many. Well, it happens in many just in the sense that they have relationships with different other God brothers and God sisters, and they really find that they're getting spiritual nourishment, inspiration, encouragement from the association of the God brothers and God sisters. And that picks them up whenever they, if ever or whenever they get a bit down, or particularly if they go through some difficulty. But the contract, so to speak, in this case, is with Prabhupada himself. Of course, he can always depute someone. Yeah. You know, if that, I forget the Bilvamangal spiritual master's name from the previous life. If he could empower this prostitute, she was not really a devotee. I mean, she was not like a practicing devotee. She's a prostitute, but she was something of a devotee. And he worked through her. So if he could work through her, Prabhupada can work through some of his like better situated disciples. Now, in the next lifetime.
Could that be maybe what Prabhupada was referring to when he said Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj sent people, or sent devotees? Like they were maybe his disciples or something like that. And
it's possible, something like that.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you for the association. Okay.
I'll take the harmony in case if you want to sing tomorrow.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah, because that harmony wasn't sounding.
Wasn't true. Yeah, go ahead. Did you call that Anand?
I did call the Prabhupada, but he didn't get back to me.
I see. Follow up.
He spoke to me about this another guy,
Okay.
but I need to Google it and check it out.
Okay.